And we are live. Welcome into Short Yardage. I'm Michael Sicoli. I'm here with Nick Roll, and man, we're exiting the third and final week of preseason, and it's been a busy week. How's it going with you?
I'm fired up. I'm fired up because the ADPs are crystallizing. What I mean by that is this was the real first draft weekend. We got one more before the season starts, but this was the weekend where we really saw no mock draft ADPs, just no best ball ADPs, like straight up redraft ADPs, and it's great to see where everyone's falling. Also, I got to give a couple shout outs. I had a couple drafts this weekend. One was the 24th annual Horseman
24.
Lodge League. Shout out to the Horseman Lodge League. I know some of those guys are hopefully tuning in, but 24 years. Next year's gonna be 25. Also, shout out Leroy E. I'm wearing this little get up here for this is his hat. So a lot of those guys knew him. That's my grandpa. When I say Leroy, you say E. Shout out Phil.
That is incredible. 24 years. That is longer than I've been on this earth, which is saying something. Oh, jeez. I didn't even make that connection. You told me that before, but saying it now, saying it out loud, it's a whole different thing. Do you want to get right into it? We got a busy doc. We normally go on Thursdays. We took a couple days. I moved into college. You're going to see a different background here. And we took a couple of days off, and the NFL landscape changed a lot in those 4 days. So what do you want to start with?
Yeah, let's jump right in with some of the preseason news. I mean, kind of things are really starting to clear up, but probably the biggest news of the week was JK mid-draft, actually, for me yesterday. Thank God I had not drafted him. ACL done for the year. What do you think?
I think that I was in the middle of shopping for a TV in a Best Buy, and I fell to my knees and wept. For my dynasty rosters were just devastated, but it's brutal for J.K. Dobbins. I love him. He was my favorite running back in that class. Obviously, he's going to be out for the year. That leaves Gus Edwards stepping in. There's people who are a little bit more cautious about him. I view him exactly how I would have viewed Dobbins, except I think there's more. There's less competition. Justice Hill, Tyson Williams. Let's say they bring in Todd Gurley. Whoever it is, it's not J.K. Dobbins. It's less talented than J.K. Dobbins. Gus Edwards will get his due. It's a 220 carry lock to me in a very talented offense.
And the way I view it is what Gus lacks in talent between him and J.K., he's going to make up for in just a little bit of extra volume. He's going to get his volume, which he was probably going to get, 33% to 40% of the carries.
It's going to jump to 60.
It's going to jump to 60, yeah. So he's the 60 guy, and what they like to be a 60-40, or what most likely we'll see is something like a 60-20-20 split here. You put a guy down, Tyson Williams. He's a chunk. He's a chunk boy. He's 6'1", 220, so he might be a bruiser. But Gus Edwards is good at the goal line. He's that guy. Like, for the last few years, we haven't really been on Gus Edwards because he's never been a big name guy, but he scores touchdowns and takes touchdowns away from the J.K. Dobbins of the world. But
and he keeps getting it done. He might not be the flashy receiver that we want to be. He wasn't the highest drafted guy. He doesn't rip off the 40, 50-yard plays that you want, but he's a continual 4.5 to 5 yard per carry clip, and he's going to just take it all the way. So I guess not take it all the way, but he's going to take the brunt of the work. It's one less person to deal with on the goal line in my eyes. If they bring in Gurley, he could mix in there. I don't think Tyson Williams is taking a goal line carry as big as he is. So it's Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards. And a large market share in that offense, I'm all about. So I'm willing to take him around that RB 19 to RB 22 range, maybe RB 18. Obviously, it's better in half PPR. He's not going to catch passes, but I wasn't too confident that Dobbins was either. So people saying, that we were looking for a passing down, Gus isn't going to get the passing down. Neither was Dobbins, as much as we wanted him to. So I'll draft Gus Edwards with confidence this year.
Yeah, 4-5 turn is great for Gus Edwards if you're looking for a running back. I like him right behind Chris Carson. Jameis Winston wins the job. I was hoping for this because everything's back on for New Orleans. Actually, I mean, Jameis is going to have to turn water into wine there for a few weeks, it
For a
seems.
few
But
weeks, yeah.
I think the biggest news as it currently stands is that Alvin Kamara probably got to move him up to number 2, in my opinion, just because the offense is really going to flow through him and shots downfield that put Alvin Kamara in the situations to score.
I've had him at 2 my entire process based on the receiving work. As soon as Michael Thomas went down, don't blame anyone for taking Dalvin Cook over him, but I think that's the tier. I think we have CMC, then we have Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara. You can choose the order. I'll choose Alvin Kamara, and then you have Derrick Henry right behind him, but I think a step down in the tier.
Yeah.
But I'll take Alvin Kamara at 2.
Yeah, definitely. Let's keep hitting these quickly. T.Y. Hilton injury. It doesn't seem super clear how severe
it was
it is.
Undisclosed.
Other than it's going to be a multiple week absence. At this stage of his career, that does not inspire confidence in a player that we weren't confident in already. However, what this does do is it kind of boosts Michael Pittman up in the volume category. I'm not sold on his talent. I think the most talented wide receiver who has injury concerns in that wide receiver core is Paris Campbell. And for me, go get Paris Campbell right now if he's on any of your waiver wires. That's the thing that should be happening right now that hasn't happened yet.
I do like Michael Pittman. I think I liked him out of I like those USC wide receivers right out of college. I think he could take a big step this year. He's someone I'm targeting at the end. What the Hilton thing is, we weren't drafting T.Y. Hilton. Nobody was expecting anything with T.Y. Hilton. What it does is it takes a field stretcher away from Carson Wentz. I don't even think it affects Pittman that much. It gives Zach Pascal a nice little downfield role where he'll have 1 to 2 DFS weeks. But all this does is a downgrade for Carson Wentz, a little downgrade for the offense.
Yeah. Let's move on. RB situations, some preseason kind of usage counts that we've seen. Tony Jones seems to be winning the number 2 job in New Orleans. And a shout out to another league I'm in, Flow Exotics Wonder Emporium. They were asking me why I thought Tony Jones was this year's James Robinson. It's more of like a big picture galaxy brain take. Who's the most likely, like out of nowhere RB1? I think this Tony Jones. I feel like this Tony Jones guy, and that's where the similarities really stop, honestly, with the situation. But Tony Jones, he's explosive. They seem to love him. He's been surprising some people in camp. And Lat Murray, like literally, they might have to cut him, not because he's bad, but because they need to pay their rookie class.
They saved $4 million by cutting Latavius Murray. He's been sluggish this offseason. If they keep him, it's strictly because he's familiar with the scheme. But I do think he's actually going to be one of those cuts. I tweeted that out a while ago. We do have a little bit of breaking news as I see it. Evan Ingram is heading to the locker room. Looks like he limped off earlier. He's had a strong camp. That's a tough break for Ingram, who was maybe you grab him if you missed out on everyone. He was the safe guy you could take at the end of your draft. But looks like he's dealing with a calf issue. The way that Evan Ingram heals from injuries is not something I'm too excited about. So that's something to monitor as if you were counting on him being available in your last round.
Definitely. I think you said it all there. But yeah, so Tony Jones, I think that's one that really like kind of raised the eyebrows. And also one that kind of is starting to get some steam now. I saw a couple guys pick him up is Alex Collins. Seems to maybe outplaying even a healthy Rashad Penny, which, man, like that guy can't catch a break after that first round draft pick, that being a first round draft pick. But yeah, any thoughts on that before we move on?
I grabbed Alex Collins earlier this offseason, one of my dynasties. I couldn't hold on to him just, through transactions. And he showed some real wiggle in that last preseason game. There are a lot of clips of him that were going viral of him just shaking defenders. And these are 3rd string, 4th string defenders that might not be on the roster in a week. But it's nice to see. And given Carson's physical game, how he could miss time, Alex Collins will be in the running for that number 2 job. Rashad Penny isn't being given anything at this point in his career. It's fair to wonder if he's the same player after that many knee injuries. So it's not inconceivable that Alex Collins, who Pete Carroll seems to like because he keeps on bringing him back, it's not inconceivable to see him grab that number 2 job and run with it if Chris Carson were to go down. Without Chris Carson going down, he's not going to have a role. So you're not
Yeah.
drafting him.
Yeah. One interesting thing, this would be again, I'm going Galaxy brain on us again.
Galaxy brain, go for it.
Alex Collins used to be with the Ravens.
Yeah.
Would they trade for him? I don't know.
Oh, no.
Not worth thinking about right now. But anyway, Sony Michel trade to the Rams. We haven't covered this yet. What's your take on that?
So Sony Michel was someone I've been saying for the entire offseason and for the last week, or the week before the trade especially, that I did not expect him to be on this roster. I thought he would either be cut due to what I perceive as J.J. Taylor being a better player, Ramondre Stevenson being the rookie they invested in, Damian Harris is the much better player, and James White with the guaranteed contract as the long-standing veteran. That's 4 backs. I didn't think Michel fit. But, they found a trade partner. And I do not take this as an endorsement of the running back room in New England. I'm sure they love Damian Harris, who I think is going to be set for a good year. I'm sure they like what they have in Stevenson. I'm sure James White they're content with. But what this is to me is they got offered a 5th that could be a 4th for Sony Michel, who might not have made this roster. They're taking that trade regardless of who they thought was in their running back room. Sony Michel was on a contract year. He was not getting re-signed. It's just a smart deal for the Patriots as opposed to an endorsement for the rest of them. If you want to talk about the Rams side, you can go for it. There's some interesting tidbits there.
Yeah, so the Rams, it's kind of like people aren't sure what to do. It's Darrell Henderson sometimes goes first, and Sony shortly after. I want the cheaper guy as like a 0 RB target. This is also kind of signaling that NFL teams think that Sony Michel still has some juice left. So that's my takeaway. I might be grabbing Sony Michel in some spots is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and a 4th, I say that the Patriots, obviously they're going to take a 4th round pick. It goes the other way of saying that the Rams viewed him worth a 4th round pick, a 5th round pick. So that shows how they value him, and he will be on the field. A little tidbit that I meant to tweet it out, but I got lost in my packing over the last week. Fun fact, and apparently the person who was beating the table for this trade, the Rams running back coach was Michel's coach at Georgia. That's an interesting connection to be aware of. And Henderson, I don't know if Henderson can stay healthy. And right now, Michel's going in the middle of the 12th round. I expect that to rise since the trade. ADPs are still, people are drafting, but ADPs are still fluctuating with something with that as recent as it is. But I'll take Sony Michel late in drafts 10 times out of 10, despite not thinking much of his talent. It's the Rams offense. That's the type of murky situation you find wine out of water.
Listen, the fact that that the Rams running back coach used to be Sony Michel's coach is what makes you a true football guy, and this is what makes this show work, and I love you for that. So rookie QB roundup. Trevor Lawrence wins the job. Whatever was going on. I'm not even going to get into that.
We are not. That's equivalent to us saying that J.D. McKissick wants an every down role. We are not touching that.
Nothing new for the other guys, really, other than Justin Fields is just throwing dimes. Trey Lance, I'm going to draw a line. I had an epiphany the other day with what Kyle Shanahan pulled with the Mac Jones at 3 nonsense and leaking things to sources and getting up and whatever. I think he took acting classes to pull that off. I'm not trusting.
For whatever it's worth, I have a mock draft out there that proves that I was not buying that for a second Mac Jones. However, I did think it was Justin Fields, so I still got it wrong. I won't pat myself on the back, but Mac Jones was never going to make sense there. But sorry, not to interrupt that.
That's fine. I mean that's the QB roundup. Not a whole lot here. I just wanted to put it out there. I want it on there. Old takes expose me. I don't care. Trey Lance, week 1. Wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Deshaun Watson to the Dolphins. I don't want to talk about it until it happens. Tua has looked good. I don't get it. Tell me about Kenny Galladay. Tell me about
I'll tell you about Kenny Galladay. Kenny Galladay is someone I am not touching in drafts unless he falls to the double digits, which he won't. He's been dealing with a hamstring injury for several weeks. He injured his hamstring last year. He's dealt with soft tissue before. This is a guy that I love. He's a great talent, but he's also a guy that's always thrived on touchdowns and big plays, something that I don't think the Giants are going to have a lot of. So even if he has a decent market share with positive game scripts, even if he's on the field, which is no guarantee, it's going to be a streaky play that's going to leave you really bearing sometimes. Sterling Shepard's had a strong camp. I read today that Darius Slayton has quietly had has a solid camp. Evan Ingram might be going down, but that doesn't affect how I view that. I view the Giants as a total stay away situation. I think this is a dumpster fire of a team. I think this is going to be I think the win total. I think the line is a 6.5 wins. I'm smashing the under.
Not low enough, according to you. Not low.
No, I even in this division improved from when it was last year.
Yeah.
Except for the Giants.
There's two other competitors.
And then the Eagles exist, but
at the end of I'm in Philadelphia right now. I can't say that too loud, but I do want to talk about. You made a lot of good points there, so I want to say that your normal standard drafter, okay, the people that are sprinkling in some RBs early, Kenny Golladay is a trap for them. If you're depending on Kenny Golladay to be your wide receiver 2, or God forbid your wide receiver 3, if you're depending on him to be that guy, you're in a bad way. However, I'm picking up Kenny Golladay as like my wide receiver 7. You know what I mean? I'm also someone may be checking me into a mental facility, but I mean, I don't really like drafting running backs early. So I'll go Devontae Adams, Steph Diggs, hammer wide receivers, and then grab Kenny Golladay. I don't hate that. So that's when I told you I was on Kenny Golladay at his current price, I'm saying that in that environment. I'm not taking him as my wide receiver 2 or 3, which I think fantasy analysts, I guess that's what we're doing right now, right? We need to start kind of depicting things that way, where if you're depending on him to do this, he's a no draft at this price. But if you're depending on him to have a spike week and then maybe catch fire back half of the year, and all of a sudden he's replacing Tyler Boyd as your wide receiver 3, then we're talking, you know?
If I can get as my wide receiver 6, 7, if my league has an IR where I'm currently not expecting him to be out there week 1, he hasn't been healthy for weeks. And there was also a few reports before he got injured that he was dropping passes. That's not something I'm really concerned about.
I mean, that's the type of stuff I ignore. And I did want to make this point earlier. When we're talking about like he looks good in a preseason game, we're reporting that to you in this podcast because we want you to understand that he passed the eye test, and then people from that camp, from that team, sources are saying that was enough to at least challenge for the job. Okay. Yeah. When we're saying it's not Kenny Golladay has 5 drops in a preseason practice, that doesn't matter. What matters is Kenny Golladay has 5 drops in a preseason practice. Sources say confidence is low, right? Yeah. Or something that alludes to the fact that the team is actually having sit downs with him, you know, those types
Every
of things.
player has bad practices.
Yeah.
Also the final point I'll bring up on Golladay, the final nail in the coffin for me, it's the schedule. Like, it starts off week 1. Like, let's say he's out there, because I think currently people are expecting him to be out there. I'm a little bit more conservative there. Starts week 1 versus Denver. I don't want to play him there. I don't want to play him against Washington the next week. Atlanta's fine, but then you have the Saints. I don't want Marshawn Lattimore. Dallas, I expect to be a bit improved. The Rams, Carolina's a fine matchup. KC can be tough. The Raiders are fine, but then we're getting to week 9. And then even on the back half, it's just the schedule's not there for me. There's Xavier Howard on the back half. There's the Bucks on the back half. There's Derwin James and the Chargers.
I think you can get yourself into trouble if you try to predict cornerback wide receiver matchups.
Fair.
That far in advance, because I mean, I do think that offensive coordinators are starting to get a little hip to the fact that you can move your big guy into the slot and avoid shutdown corner. But yeah, he's gonna be an interesting story to follow this year.
Yeah.
Speaking of that,
sorry. Final thing, just because you said offensive coordinators again more hip. Another nail in the coffin. We got Jason Garrett. You're relying on. Jason Garrett is not getting hip. Jason Garrett is not getting hip.
To get hip, you're right. Yeah, okay,
exactly.
Point you. If we were on Around the Horn, they'd be Tony Reali would just be smashing the points button. What a show! That was the last great show of ESPN, in my opinion. But moving on.
We're not going to get into that.
So I'm gonna turn this into an article that's probably gonna drop, I'd say, early this week. Adam Levitan from Establish the Run did this, and I really appreciated it. I thought it was a really cool idea. This is round by round favorite targets. Now, I don't just want to do what Levitan did. Copycat. It's a copycat league, though. I tried to pick guys that I know for a fact were going mid to late. Okay, so these are
plant
guys
your flag
that,
type of players. You got to plant your flag.
Yeah, these are guys that you can feel comfortable. If I say round 3, take them at the 2-3 turn. Reach for them and you're fine. If you're sitting there at 6, which is a frustrating spot to be in, right? If you're sitting there at 6, grab them on the way through. Okay, I can confidently say, unless anything drastic happens, like after seeing what I saw this weekend in a few drafts, these are players that if I say round 3, at any spot in round 3, you're probably going to get them. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that you will run into if you're really reaching and that does add up over a draft, but I'm also going to probably do later rounds too, and those are guys that are going to fall to you that I'm okay with. So that will balance out. Look for those articles, those pair of articles early this week. But yeah, let's start off right away. Round 1. This one's Travis Kelce. Like I said, the sharps in the high stakes leagues, you're seeing Kelce go in non-tight end premium in right around like 5, 6, 7. He could lead the league in receiving yards as a tight end. That's not out of his range of outcomes. I think like after CMC, Cook, Kamara go, I'm pivoting away from running back, and a lot of people are going to gasp at that. But Kelce has shown no signs of slowing down yet. And until he does, like, I'm not going to have any hesitations with him. So what do you think? Like, does Kelce at like 5, like give you nightmares?
Kelce at 5 doesn't give me nightmares, but it might give me nightmares, but I won't wake up in a hot sweat. Okay. I say that in a smoldering dorm room, but Travis Kelce is fantastic, and he's as safe as he comes. And I've heard it being said before. I'll just reiterate the point that Travis Kelce is bust proof. The only way he gets the only way he busts is through injury. There's no indication that should be the case.
Yeah.
Travis Kelce is fantastic. I won't take him at 5 because I personally still like running backs there. I'll still take my Aaron Jones, the Zekes, the Jonathan Taylor. But I'll take him over all the wide receivers. I'll take him after the running backs I just named. I'll probably take him over Chubb, who I'm very high on. I know you're not as high on. But
nope.
After the running backs I just mentioned, and obviously Kamara, Henry, CMC, and Cook, I'll take him right there. So that probably puts me around the about 9? About 9 to 12 range. I will take Kelce. Yeah. Be very happy with whoever comes around. And if I do find myself, going with that 0 RB strategy that you've really put me onto, when I'm in that back half where I take Kelce and I happily take Devontae Adams right around.
Yeah, that's the in vogue. That's where people are really comfortable going 0 RB this year. I think this is like one of the first years where your typical guys who would like never consider 0 RB, some of those people are considering it at the back half of the first round. And
the first round running backs don't feel as strong as they used to.
Yeah. But one thing I wanted to say was that if you needed permission to take Travis Kelce as early as 5, I just gave it to you. Okay, don't worry about it.
And I wouldn't veto it. I wouldn't veto it.
Yeah. The second one, and I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Najee Harris at 2, early 2, mid 2, late 2. Like I said, we are both Steelers fans. I don't make recommendations.
There's no bias here.
There is. We can't avoid it. There definitely is. There definitely is. But I would not recommend this emphatically if the numbers didn't back it up. Which again, another article that's going to drop. I'm cranking them out. I'm fired up. I told you. Another article is going to drop is why I think Najee Harris will go number 1 overall in startup dynasty drafts next year. Non-superflex, of course, and also redraft. And the reason is I think his floor is 300 touches. And I got friends out there that might listen to this that I was talking to, they roasted me. They said, you said CEH was the same thing. And a lot of people said that. They said first round CEH on the most explosive offense in the world, pass catching chops after 5 goal line carries in his first ever game was going to be a 300 plus touch legendary Uber unicorn back. They said, Nick, you said that. I did. The team never said it. Andy Reid never said it. Andy Reid never made the Jamal Charles, Brian Westbrook, Kareem Hunt comparisons that the fantasy community was making. Okay. So what I'm saying is Mike Tomlin likes to play Madden when he coaches.
Yes,
I think he sees that, like, if Ben is toast, they wanted rid of him. And he literally had to beg them to let him come back. He says, okay, we're YOLO balling the 2021 season, right? And we are going to feed this exciting new rookie 300 plus touches and see what happens. I know I just went on a rant. What do you think?
No, I'm all about Najee Harris. I'm trying to find the number, a quick stat while you were talking, but Najee Harris, the reason there's no bias is because there's stats and there's reasons after reasons to back this up. Mike Tomlin has always used a bell cow running back. He does not leave the field. Even last year, James Conner was terrible, but he was out there every single time. When they used a running back, it was James Conner. You remember? Does anyone remember?
Closest they'd ever been
to a committee. And it still wasn't that close.
It was above, like, James Conner was getting above league average usage percentages.
Yeah, and that was just because it was so bad. It was such a bad offense. But all in all, like, we look at 2019.
What are the doubts, though? What are the doubts that people have on Najee Harris?
I think the biggest argument against it is the offensive line argument, which is silly, for the record, because if you look at graded running backs every single year, it's great offensive lines. It's not. There's not a strong correlation to fantasy success. Dalvin Cook had a bottom 10 offensive line last year. But what he did have was baller's ball, but he also had market share. He had that 65% market share. Nobody was saying that Jacksonville's offensive line was stellar last year. And there's still, especially going into the year, there's still room for improvement for this offensive line.
Yeah.
It was horrific last year. It couldn't be worse than it was last year.
Yeah. Saquon Barkley. I feel like we should be viewing Najee Harris as a 85% Saquon Barkley, as far as he has first round draft capital. He has the size weight ratio. Like, he's a big back that catches passes and is fast, right? He checks all those boxes. Is he as fast as Saquon Barkley? Is he as explosive? No, but he's fast enough. He's meeting the thresholds that he needs to meet to get that Uber back volume that's never come off the field. 95% of the snaps he's there. He's pass blocking. And then he gets that extra chance if there's nothing downfield, and he's the valve, you know?
Yeah. And if I can offer you a 200, let's say 250, I think that's the bar. That's the minimum for his rushing attempts, is 250 rushing attempts. Mm-hmm. And let's say 30 receptions. I think that's a very fair line given. I think that's exactly.
His Vegas line
has great hands.
Yeah. His Vegas line for catches, not targets, catches is 53. And I know Vegas lines are soft. If you don't think Najee Harris is going to smash and be a top 3, if you want to hedge top 3, I'm saying he's going to be the number 1 pick next year. If you want to bet against me, take the under on his 53 catch total. If you agree with me, take the over.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, he's being drafted. Where's he being drafted right now? He's being drafted as the RB11. I will happily take him at the RB11. That's someone, if I don't go with Kelsey and maybe I take a receiver, I'm very confident that Najee Harris will be an RB1 this year. Every year we have rookies that finish as RB1s. There's no one with more of a clear path to that than Najee Harris.
Yeah.
And the floor is as high as the ceiling. So
let me shut the book on this. Shut it.
Slam it.
Two doubts people have on the Steelers is Big Ben. Is he done? Which he very well might be, but that is a doubt that benefits a Najee Harris because they're going to run the ball more. And if his arm is really shot, what's easier than a dump off to a talented back? Secondly, the offensive line. You covered it beautifully. You covered it beautifully. That it might not be as bad as we think, one, and two, there have been backs that have succeeded with bad backs. And that comparison that I made, I meant to round it out with saying that Saquon Barkley's line his rookie year was awful.
Horrific.
Yes.
Yeah.
But let's move on to round 3. This one, CeeDee Lamb, I think, started the kind of offseason going in like the 5-6 range. He's slowly creeped up to 3. In redraft, I think you'd be hard pressed to see CeeDee Lamb in the 4th round in any league that has like even average fantasy football players. So right there in the middle of the 3rd, I'm confident that you'll see him there. He is one that he may get sniped, especially if someone like listens to a lot of podcasts. He's into like Establish the Run and Fantasy Pros. Like he's an industry favorite is what I'm trying to say. And on Underdog, which that is best ball ADP, on Underdog, he goes at 24 overall right now.
Yeah, 20. Yeah,
I view Underdog as in some respects like is a really good tool to maybe fade. Like kind of, it's an interesting tool because it is the biggest source of a very large amount of ADP
population
data, like paid ADP data. Which these are money leagues, right? People time out in a $5 league, $3 league, $2 league, sure, but not as often as these mock drafts where people just want to see their first 3 picks. Something goes wrong and they just restart, But anyway, I trust the ADP in this sense that this is a pretty strong wisdom of the crowd signal for CeeDee Lamb. And then aside from that, it makes sense. He is a low ADOT slot receiver with yak. These are your Odell Beckhams. These are your Stephon Diggs. These are your Antonio Browns, right? We'll get to another guy later. This is Jerry Jeudy. Okay. These are guys who, say what you want, like the football guys out there might have their gripes about these guys because they don't go outside and like bully cornerbacks, you know what I mean? But these are fantasy football darlings, right?
Yeah.
Because they're getting high percentage. Like when the quarterback targets them, they have a really good chance of catching it, and then it's just bankable points. What do you think?
And he might not and he might not bully people on the outside, but I think you'll see some outside work. I think it's very possible to me that Amari Cooper sees some slot work this year. He's done it in years past, maybe not as much when CeeDee came into town, but Amari Cooper can slide inside, and CeeDee Lamb can perfectly succeed outside as well. CeeDee Lamb's he's just a dynamic route runner. He's someone I made that huge trade for. We talked about a couple of weeks ago to get CeeDee Lamb. Dak is looking healthy. That was one of the big concerns that some people had. I wasn't as concerned, but every report is that he's going to be good to go week 1.
Today was like some really there were some really optimistic reports about him today.
Yeah.
I was
Jerry Jones said he's good to go. You trust Jerry Jones?
Jerry Jones.
I love Jerry.
Jerry Jones fires me up. I'm not even gonna lie.
I used to hate him, and now
I don't think we need to sell. We don't need to sell the people on CeeDee Lamb. I think that's another one where people they just might have needed a little bit of permission. Mr. Garal here again. The middle school science teacher is going to give you a hall pass on all these guys. Maybe that's how I'll write the article.
So with that in mind, though, I guess where's the route where he busts? Is it? I think the only route where I see him, because he is being drafted as the wide receiver 12 right now. That you're drafting him as a wide receiver 1, and I'm happy taking him there. But I see a world he doesn't reach that. If the biggest reason is if Dak isn't right. I think that's the only reason I think he misses this.
Yeah, I would say this. The Cowboys' offensive line had some injury issues last year, which is also that's not a good sign for an offensive line with that age. If they're healthy, no worries, like wheels up. Another thing that we might worry about is that pace that Dak was on and that team was on, like
was unsustainable.
Is not sustainable. So CeeDee's like early season numbers definitely got pumped by that. But CeeDee was he was still a top 20 wide receiver with a lot of games with a very decrepit Andy Dalton and a bad offensive line. So like I said, he has shown us that in a very bad environment, he can still produce. So 3rd round is the right time. Like you got to buy. This is an example of buying high on CeeDee Lamb, and it's okay. You have permission.
Yep. And by staying in the slot, he avoids those tough cornerback matchups, which may be assigned to Amari Cooper, who will have his lovely disappearing games.
Yeah, he's real quick. I want to touch on Amari Cooper real quick.
Go for it.
That's a shame for him because CeeDee Lamb is pushing him outside 80% of the time or so. That's what the preseason snap usage has looked like this year. And Amari Cooper is a better slot than he is an outside guy. That reception perception stuff I was talking about, Amari Cooper is below the 70% win rate on that metric, which it's not good for a wide receiver to not be able to get off man and press coverage. So that's why you kind of see him have boom bust, because he booms against bad corners that he can beat in those man press situations. And he busts. You can almost take it to the bank that he's going to bust against a lockdown corner, like anybody that has a name, you know? But anyway, we got to move on to DJ Moore in the 4th round. Again, it's a semi reach, but it's not a full round reach. Coming off his 2nd consecutive season of 1,000 yards at 24 years old. It's his 3rd year. He's like Benjamin Button of wide receivers. We want to keep banking on young ascending wide receivers. That's what we did with CD Lamb. That's what we're doing with DJ Moore. And that's what we're going to do next round in a second. But one thing that is like, why is he discounted in drafts? Not everyone's sold on Sam Darnold. But the role that Moore got stuck in was the worst role he could be in a Teddy Bridgewater offense. Mm-hmm. That role is valuable if Sam Darnold, even if he's bad, is going to YOLO it and sling it downfield, which he did it at USC. I remember the Penn State USC Rose Bowl that was like, they scored like 1 million points. It was a track meet. And all I remember is fat face Sam Darnold. Sorry, Sam Darnold. I do have you in Dynasty, but just play after play, just throwing it up, which DJ Moore can win those balls. He's not like a prototypical alpha outside wide receiver, but he's bigger than most people think. He's like kind of like a compact run after the catch. He can go up and get the ball. The only
he's
thing
very well rounded for a smaller guy.
Yeah. The only thing keeping him from wide receiver 1, like top 12 wide receiver status, is touchdowns. He's scored 10 touchdowns in 3 years. So DJ Moore, DJ Jarvis, one of our founding fathers of for fantasy's sake, says all DJs always win. So we love it. So DJ in the 4th round. Let's go.
I love DJ Moore. Yeah, no, DJ Moore is a fantastic player. I still have my reservations of this offense, or not necessarily the offense, but of Sam Darnold, of seeing that touchdown number actually jump. I do think Robbie.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I do think Robbie Anderson's going to get his in terms of volume. I think Sam Darnold's going to pepper him. And then we have to factor in, Curtis Samuel is gone, but Christian McCaffrey comes back, and Christian McCaffrey led this team in receptions the year before. I don't think that changes. They're paying him to be. He's a great player. He's going to have 100 receptions. So we factor that in, plus Robbie Anderson's connection, chemistry, and honestly, he's a talented player. He's going to get his. Terrace Marshall might be stealing touchdowns enough to not be a fantasy guy, but enough.
That scares me.
Yeah, he can steal some touchdowns. He's the biggest guy on this team.
I was not prepared for you to pour as much cold water on DJ Moore.
I love DJ Moore, man. I do.
Those are very good points.
Yeah.
And nobody cares points as to why his touchdown numbers probably we can't increase his touchdown numbers based on his situation getting better.
And he's never been. And I understand that like this like he's never really had great quarterback play, but 4 touchdowns last year, 4 touchdowns the year before, 2 touchdowns as a rookie. It's not maybe that's just not the player he is, or maybe he needs an MVP type of outlier quarterback season.
Yeah, DJ Moore is an analytics.
I think
oh, sorry, you froze up there for a second, but I just wanted to say DJ Moore is like an analytics darling, because one thing that like one of the strongest correlations with touchdowns and therefore fantasy points is yards. And he's put up yardage 780 his rookie year, over 1,000 his sophomore year, and then this past year, like 1,300 yards, or he approached 1,300 yards.
He was just short of 12.
Just short of 1,200 yards. Sorry, thanks for that. But yeah, the yards are there. So the touchdowns should follow just from linear regression. Now, I'm going to lose the football guys here in a minute, but from a pure regression standpoint, he should be scoring more touchdowns. So even 1-2 more might be enough for him. Might be enough for him to rocket him into a great 4th round pick. But moving on to round 5, I got 3 here. Okay, 3, because this is where you make your money. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Round 5. I'm taking Jerry Jeudy, young, ascending wide receiver. He had a underrated, solid rookie season. Okay. Read the article tomorrow to see those. But he's a good yak receiver, short A dot. He literally has done. He's like in the workout group in the offseason with Antonio Brown and Stephon Diggs because they all have similar technique. Like, again, football guys out there, I know you know that there's techniques that matter, right? And getting a clinic with Stephon Diggs, Antonio Brown, that's what I want my receivers to be doing. Teddy Bridgewater kind of unlocks this offense, believe it or not. Say what you want about Teddy Bridgewater, but he supported 3 1,000-yard wide receivers last year and a good back in Mike Davis. And like I said, for all the reasons that I love CeeDee Lamb, I love Jerry Jeudy. Different athletes, different overall body types, different pedigrees, probably, but both are fantasy. They're both in the same fantasy wide receiver archetype for me. Say a little bit about Jerry Jeudy, and then we're going to talk about his exciting teammate.
It's ridiculously difficult for me to say just a little bit of Jerry Jeudy because Jerry Jeudy has made my team in almost every mock I've done. I will reach on him if I need to. Teddy Bridgewater already has a connection with Jerry Jeudy. They've been connecting all preseason. And Cortland Sutton missing time to begin camp, that clearly affected where Teddy was throwing the ball. We saw it in preseason that he was looking his way. Jerry Jeudy is a ridiculous talent. I don't think we need to doubt that. People talking about his drops rookie year. Rookies deal with drops. Receivers deal with drops. It doesn't mean Tyreek Hill had double-digit drops.
I need people to hear that again. Ignore drops. They do not
ignore
carry
drops.
over year to year. They may carry over game to game because of a psychological component, but good coaches will not get on a young receiver for drops.
Yeah.
Good coaches, good coaches will understand that these players have been catching footballs their entire life. Drops are outliers, right? And sometimes I think some of these coaches don't understand that, and they'll get in the receiver's head, and then it does, like, there are real psychological things that can undo years of practice.
The hardest thing to do is to get open, and Jerry Jeudy does it as well as anyone.
Yes.
And he did it last year. He put up 850 yards last year, and he did that with the second most amount of uncatchable targets, behind only AJ Green, interestingly enough. But if he had every ball was over his head, it was tough to watch. He was dropping some, yes, but when you double that with the targets that were not catchable. Jerry Jeudy's in for an incredible second year. We talk about it every single year. We just talked about with CeeDee Lamb. People are talking about with Brandon Ayuk. You want to grab a second-year receiver. You want to grab 2 second-year receivers. Jerry Jeudy is that mold. He's going in the 5th, 6th, 7th round because of how we're viewing the quarterback situation and how murky it was. I'm taking him 10 times out of 10. Do you want to? You want to touch on Javonte, who was our next name, Javonte Williams? I didn't build that up at all.
So no, it's all good. The thing is this was an insight that I gathered from this weekend of doing a few real drafts with some friends, because I've been doing a lot of sharp leagues, but that's true. Like, people that are drafting like in July, they're typically more into fantasy football, for what that's worth. But in these leagues, like, ADP does not reflect what I saw this weekend because it's just different. And that's for better or for worse, honestly. Because we can definitely overthink these things. But anyway, what I saw was that I had to make a choice because I wanted Jerry Jeudy and Javonte Williams. In my experience, you can't get both. Okay. So what I want to say is Javonte Williams in the 5th makes sense for a team that went wide receiver heavy early. It does not make sense for a team that went running back heavy early. What I'm saying is you can get away with, and this is why I love him in the 5th. And I can see that you're not going to like this. I'm okay with Javonte Williams being
starting week 1,
being my RB2. I'm okay with Javonte Williams being my RB2. I'm not okay with him probably being my RB1. Actually, I am, but I know a lot of people won't be. So I'm telling the people what they want to hear. I'm okay with him being my RB1, but I'm okay with Javonte Williams as my RB1 with like James White on my bench, because maybe he doesn't get there the first few weeks, right? What do you think? Oh my gosh.
Sorry. I just heard that James White has to be in my starting lineup, and it's fine.
I literally thought you were about to puke because it's too hot in your dorm room.
No. I listen. Javonte Williams is fantastic, and I honestly have been targeting him in leagues where I am a little bit more running back heavy, kind of the opposite of what you said, where I view Javonte Williams.
And he's a great target for any team.
Yes, that's basically what it means. It's unless you go. Maybe if you don't go quarterback, maybe if you go quarterback early, which whatever. But Javonte Williams, I view in the lens of Jonathan Taylor, and Jonathan Taylor's timeline last year got upped by the Marlon Mack thing. But Melvin Gordon will exist on this offense for at least the foreseeable future.
Right.
That groin injury isn't there. That groin injury is in the past. Javonte is great. I don't want to start in week 1. I can't feel comfortable starting him until I see him.
He's good, man.
Javonte Williams was my favorite running back to scout in the start. I had Najee number 1. I had Javonte number 2 ahead of ETN. He can pass, like we saw it this weekend as well, and it was so important to see. But he leveled a blitzing linebacker. He can pass block. He has soft hands, and we have no doubts about his ability as a rusher. He's a great player, and talent will win out, and it might be one of those second half things, which is why I want to go. I don't want to start in week 1. If I go wide receiver early, then maybe I grab a Damian Harris, someone I feel comfortable starting with a safe workload, and then I can wait for the Javonte breakout. But it's definitely coming. I'm very excited for the Broncos this year, clearly.
Yeah, you made a couple points there, but I want to make it clear. The reason I said that the way I said that, which was this. Running back early teams, I would recommend to not take Javonte Williams, not because I don't think it's a good idea to have a couple backs to get you through the first half of the season, and then Javonte Williams smashes, and there you have 3 RB1s on your team, and Javonte Williams is your flex. That's great. That's fine. That's fine for me. However, what I'm saying is I think those running back early heavy teams, I don't want them to miss out on Judy, is what I'm saying.
That's fair.
I'm saying like Jerry Judy is your wide receiver 2. I love that. I love that for those teams, right? I think that's the way where a 0 RB guy like me, I'm going to have a hard time keeping up with like two backs that stay healthy early, right? And then a team with Jerry Judy as their wide receiver 2. That's a scary team.
Basically, what we're saying is you can't go wrong. I think those are 2 names that we both want to target. You're going to leave with one of those Broncos. I'm fine with either.
Yeah, and one day, Mike, you'll get to the point where you take Javonte Williams as your RB1, and then supplement.
It'll be next year.
Yeah, supplement him with J.D. McKissick, Nyheim Hines, and James White.
Next year I'll be taking Javonte Williams in round 2. So there you go. I'll be confident taking him with number 1.
I can see that. Gus Edwards we touched on already. Like I have him here in the 5th. I probably wouldn't take him over Javonte Williams if I'm being honest, but I really like Javonte Williams. I honestly think Gus Edwards might not even be here in the 5th after he settles out. But we've already talked about Gus Edwards' ADP, so let's move on. All right. We might have to end the show with this.
We probably should. This is going to be fiery.
We're on different ends of this.
Yes, we are.
So these are the first 6 rounds. In round 6, all right, round 6, I'm saying Jamar Chase. This is one where you're not reaching for Jamar Chase here. You're letting him fall to you, in my opinion. I'll let you start. What's the bear case on Jamar Chase?
Okay, so if you can't tell by me basically trying to tape over my mouth while you talk about Chase, Chase was my number 1 prospect in this class. I didn't have Smith. I didn't have Waddle. I didn't have Bateman. I had Chase as my number 1, and he's going to have a good career. But after taking a year off of football,
that was the consensus number 1.
Yes,
I don't think you're contrarian there. Consensus
no.
number 1.
At the end of the day, it came down to that. I wanted said that I don't think Chase is a bad player. I think that he looks like a player who took a year off of football. He sat out 2020. During the pandemic when players were able to do that. And we talk about drops not being, an issue, but I'm starting to worry how they're going to affect his confidence, given how high profile these drops tend to be. He just dropped another one this weekend when Burrow just put in in Burrow's 3 snaps, threw a little screen to Chase, dropped it again. But my argument does not revolve around drops. my argument revolves around receivers drafted in the top 10. Since 2012, there have been 9 wide receivers drafted in the top 10. And for the record, the history inside the top 5 is even worse. But I gave him leverage. I gave him top 10, so bigger sample size. So these are the names: Justin Blackmon, he was the wide receiver 89 his rookie year. Tavon Austin, wide receiver 55. Sammy Watkins, wide receiver 27. Mike Evans, wide receiver 13. Amari Cooper, 21. Kevin White missed the entire year with injury, and Corey Davis, who was the 86. And Mike Williams, who was the 137, and John Ross, who saw only 2 targets in 3 games he played. So I'll try to do this quickly because I know we're running out of time. I know you got to make your case, but Chase, to live up to this 6th round ADP, you're drafting him to exceed that, right? You're drafting him to be inside the top 20. So if you're drafting him to try to be close to that Evans thing, Evans sitting on the back of 12 touchdowns. I don't think Chase is going to be. I don't think any receiver on this team scores that much. If you want to compare him to Amari Cooper saw a 130 target thing, a 130 target workload. He got a solid thing. He got a solid market share. We got to compare that to here with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, both of which Tyler Boyd has recorded 75 receptions for 3 straight years. That's not changing. T. Higgins is coming into his own as a great wide receiver. If I don't see where Chase fits here to the level of 6th round ADP. You're drafting him to be your wide receiver 2, 3. If you go heavy on wide receiver, you're taking him as your 4 or 5. I don't think it happens, at least until we might see some flashes, but I don't think you're going to be able to predict those games. It's a tough division in the AFC North. It's a ridiculously tough schedule. We've been saying it about the Steelers. Why don't we say it about the Bengals? And this offensive line's a train wreck. He won't get downfield quick enough for how quick Burrow is going to be under pressure. I'll let you try to make your case on Chase, but he's off my board pretty much.
Yeah, that's interesting that you were. That's interesting that you were able to pull up so many 1st round busts, but you named them all. All of the recent 1st round busts also happen to be actually in the higher end of the draft, which is interesting. That's an example of a very small sample size showing a relationship that is a correlation but not a causation. I know you understand that the fact that wide receivers are taken earlier, that has nothing to do with them failing.
Yeah, no, of course not. I was saying, but those numbers I gave were for their rookie year production. Mike Evans is a great receiver. Amari Cooper is a great receiver. Sammy Watkins had some other mental issues, and some of the other guys. Mike Williams, I think, is great. He's just been injured, and we don't know about some of the other guys. But I'm not doubting Chase's talent. I just don't think the 1st year production is this. I think this is a post-type sleeper in 2022.
I could definitely see that for the other reasons you named. This is not one of them, and I'll explain in a second. This is a good little analytics insight because I do think that my camp of people, we do a really good job with these wide receivers. We hit on them more than we miss, for sure. But I do think that his path to failure, I will agree with you that there's a lot of mouths to feed. Maybe Joe Burrow is a little slow to come back from his injury. T. Higgins isn't going anywhere. He's going to demand his targets. And Tyler Boyd's going to demand his targets. I'm on board with you. And listen, I don't want my rookies having this type of camp. You can't have a worse camp than him. There's even some off the field stuff that we're worried about. Yeah, not super worried about, but like I said, Jamar Chase checks all the analytics boxes. Okay, all the busts that you named, we saw them coming. Right? They had the red flags. They broke out late, right? We don't like the analytics community. Talk about another rookie wide receiver that's had a terrible camp, and Kadarius Toney. The analytics committee, we've ignored him, right? Oh yeah. To me, that player doesn't exist, and he's really having a rough camp. The reason Kadarius Toney, we were off him was he had a low dominator rating. He didn't break out until his senior year. He's old. The types of colleges can kind of
he wasn't a good route runner. There wasn't. It was just explosive yak plays that succeed in college that don't exceed on the next level.
Exactly. But that's a little bit I think we overextend our confidence in being able to kind of talk about that stuff. Whereas the age stuff and the breakout age stuff, that's not good. But what I'm saying is Jamar Chase does not have those red flags. Okay. So because of that, and because of the draft capital, I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities to get right. Okay. I think the reports of Auden Tate taking some snaps away from him, sure, that may happen early, but I'm drafting Jamar Chase in the 6th round as a home run swing, where I think in the back half of the year, people are going to be like, and we were worried about what? So I do want to say that this is another one. If you're depending on Jamar Chase to be your wide receiver 3 or even your wide receiver 4, right? If you're depending on him to be your wide receiver 3, you got problems, okay? But if you're taking Jamar Chase in the 6th round as your 4th wide receiver, there's plenty of wide receivers that you can get by with until he gets right. I'm telling you, he's too good to not get right. I'm telling you, take him in the 6th and be the guy where everyone's like, man, I can't believe we all let him get Jamar Chase in the 6th. Because the wisdom of the crowd before the drops and stuff had him going higher than any rookie we've ever seen ever. And
Way too high.
He's going too high. He was going too high in the 4th, but in the 6th, I'm all over him is all I'm saying. For reference, CeeDee Lamb was the highest rookie taken last year, and he went in like the 7th or 8th. So we're getting closer to that, and you may see him there. But I want him for sure in the 6th.
Yeah, and I can get behind maybe 8th. Maybe I can get behind the 8th. But the reason why Chase is going as high as he is, yes, Chase is a great prospect. Yes, the Bengals run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. But Chase is going this high because the season that Justin Jefferson had, and the reason why Justin Jefferson was so amazing, so beloved, is because he went in the double digits. We love CeeDee Lamb. He went in the 8th, 9th, 10th round, depending on the league type of league you were in.
Yeah, he paid off his ADP there. He paid off his
yes,
ADP.
and he did, especially with Dak, which you can't predict the stuff that happened after that. But it chases. It's a low scoring offense. It's a competitive market share. AJ Green's workload is exactly what I expect to happen for exactly like that. AJ Green saw 100 targets. I'm fine transferring those 100 targets pretty much directly to Chase.
Yeah,
and 100 targets for. Let's turn that. I don't think he's going to catch a lot of those balls. I think it turns into 50, 55 receptions. And if we get a Jerry Jeudy type of season, that's what I'm expecting as his ceiling. That's kind of what I view his ceiling as this year. And I'm not drafting that in the 6th round, especially if it takes to the second half of the year to get that. I'll trade for him if I want to do that. Spending a 6th round pick on someone I won't see production for weeks is especially with the question marks that I have for Burrow, that offensive line staying healthy. I'll trade for him if I change my mind midway through the season. I won't spend a 6th up for him.
All right, here's my last pitch effort. Okay,
Last go for it.
Because so you mentioned Justin Jefferson, teammate of Jamar Chase. People are wanting him to have the year that he had.
Yes.
The reason why I'm saying the 6th is I'm splitting the difference between the 4th, which I don't know that there is a rookie on this planet other than Calvin Johnson that could pay that off. Okay. Which I don't even – we'll talk about Calvin Johnson's rookie year later. I'm curious. But between the 4th and the 8th, CeeDee Lamb was the 8th last year. He went in the 8th. Top 20 wide receiver in PPR in a bad situation, right? I'm splitting the difference at 6 with Chase because he was the better prospect than Justin Jefferson. CeeDee Lamb was seen as the better prospect than Justin Jefferson. So I'm saying that Jamar Chase is 2 rounds more valuable than CeeDee Lamb pre-rookie year. Okay. Now that's tough to wrap your brain around. It's tough for me to wrap my brain around. But Jamar Chase in college football, in his year that he broke out at
he was the best receiver in college football. He was better than
20 touchdowns. I don't think people understand how ridiculous that is. And Justin Jefferson was on that team. The reason the analytics community, we kind of missed on Justin Jefferson. Remember, a lot of people might have already turned off the podcast because I said CeeDee Lamb was a better prospect than Justin Jefferson, and the armchair experts and the hindsight and analysis are going to say, I had Justin Jefferson 1 overall in last year's class. No, you didn't. Some people did. Shout out John Sauber, writer for the Center Daily Times. I know he was high on Justin Jefferson, and I clowned him for it, and he was right because he watched the tape. He saw that he was actually good. The analytics community missed because Justin Jefferson had a low dominator rating. And a dominator rating is kind of like what percentage and touchdowns and yards do you get from your team. The reason Justin Jefferson had a low dominator rating, and this was kind of why we missed it, was because not because he was bad. He was good. It's just Jamar Chase was that much better. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's what the numbers show. Right?
Yeah. And I won't argue prospect. I won't argue career arc. And Chase will have a fantastic career because he's that guy. He is that guy. And I just don't think it takes year one. I think it's very possible he starts a little bit slow.
But you think that you should be buying Henry Ruggs? Why is everyone down on Henry Ruggs if these sophomore breakouts are so common?
Do you want to compare Ruggs' prospect profile compared to Jamar Chase?
We weren't on Ruggs. We weren't on Ruggs. We were
on Brian Edwards. I am buying Brian. Yeah, we're buying
Henry
Brian
Ruggs,
Edwards.
I will say that was unfair because Henry Ruggs does not check the prospect boxes. So we are not.
He does not.
I want everyone to be clear out there. I am not, and we are not buying Henry Ruggs.
No. You're buying Brian Edwards. Nick is a Ruggs truther. No,
I'm not a Ruggs truther.
At the Run Sims. At Run the Sims is a Ruggs truther.
Might as well call me Ruggs the Sims. Might as well call me Ruggs the Sims.
Oh man, we should.
I think we're losing our minds because we really got after it today. You want to take us out? Buy Jamar Chase in the 6th.
Yeah, Jamar Chase in the 6th. Don't buy Jamar Chase in the 6th. I'm not a fan of it. But
yeah, I mean that's gonna be a fun one to follow.
Yeah. No, for sure.
One last thing before you take us out. Sorry about that. Trey Sermon in the 7th was the last one. You'll have to read my article tomorrow to find out why. There's a plug for you. Now go ahead and take us home.
And I'll give you one other plug real quick. Next week on Wednesday, for fantasy's sake, is going to have a live draft. That is something that I know we are so excited to have, especially this time. The next week is the final note for what we have for fantasy. If you're doing a draft, you haven't done it yet, next week is the week to do it. You're getting all updated information. It's something that you have to check out. And live, I know at least on our end, live drafts are always the fun ones to do. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I know this was a longer one. Again, as I say every week, it's basically long yardage. But if you ever have questions, especially with the week that we, the fancy busyness that we got, you can find me at Michael Scully. You got 2 underscores there, but you don't need to look that up. And you got Nick here at Run the Sims. You can follow at for fantasy's sake at FS.
I got it. At FFSQC. You got it. We're good. At FFSQC. That's for fantasy's sake QC.com. The only and best source for fantasy football news, arguments, debates, articles, blogs, live drafts coming at you Wednesday at 8 p.m. We'll be kicking off the live draft. That's Eastern time, so 7 p.m. Central. I'm going to get into a time zone warp here, and I'm going to lose it. So we're going to go ahead and log off. Later, everybody, at run_the_sims. Take care.
Have a good one.